Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Man Cave Chronicles. Your host, James Dean Littlejohn. How the devil are you on the 7th month of January? We are slowly getting through what can only be considered as the longest month of the year ever. Every January I say this, and do you know what? I came in real optimistic last couple of weeks ago, my last podcast. I came in really optimistic, thinking I was going to be. It felt good, it felt amazing. I was like, yes, there's a bit of sun outside. I feel really excited. I feel invigorated for work. I feel invigorated for doing things in this year. Lots of stuff were coming across the board. I was planning, and it all just fell to its wayside. The temperature plummeted. The rain came out in abundance. And I thought to myself, I'm going to hopefully have to sort of go back into a biblical time and look for building Noah's Ark. It's been that torrential, literally walking the dog, and I come back soaking wet. It has not been a good month. I've had a mental breakdown last week, which has allowed me to finally give myself a little bit of time, which has also instructed me to jump on the podcast and talk about that, because that's how I process these things. But yeah, it has been an absolute nightmare. It has been a diabolical month. It feels, like I said, January, I said this last year, I was like, I don't believe it will happen again. I'm coming in more optimistic. I've got lots more enthusiasm. But no. I was wrong, mon capitan. I was very wrong. It has just been an absolute abundance, and not only that, it's been coupled with a world that is literally falling to bits. We're on the cusp of World War III. We've got fucking America absolutely berating the British from Afghanistan wars. Not that I'm going to go into that, but just to say that is the things that are going on. So we are not in a good place. War footing is about everywhere. All the military is absolutely boosting their capabilities. We're talking about gap years for children. I don't know. I don't know how to describe it. It's just one of those really surreal moments. And in fact, I reflect back now as I always do. It was only a couple of years ago that in January we started seeing all these celebrity people die, and they just seem to be in the news. And now we've got this war thing, and I don't know. It's just an absolute tyrant of issues going on. And here we are now trying to bumble our way through. I spoke about this on the last podcast about how anyone from the rich below are struggling. We are, taxes are through the roof. I was talking to somebody on TikTok the other day, and they were saying that they were worried because their water bill was £103, and they managed to get a single parent allowance, which got it down to £34. And I was like, Christ, mine starts at 205 a month. Fucking hell, I'd be happy with fucking 103, let alone fucking 34 or whatever it was after the deductions had been made. But like I say, she was struggling. We had a nice conversation. We had a really nice conversation, actually. I was like, well, she's a single parent. I'm not. We're married and got children. We both work, so we've got a good income coming in. So we don't feel the pinch as much as that person probably does. However, it just goes to show right down to the sort of nitty gritty of life that we're all trying to save money and scrimp and scrave on our bills as much as we can. Water rates through the roof, gas through the roof, electricity through the roof. It is a turmoil time at the moment. And like I say, and all of this is happening while we're all absolutely scrimping and scraping. And not only that, then the government now say to ourselves, and I won't talk about this, but I will mention it, this gap year, this come and join the military for a year and do a bit of, it's like, no. You don't need to do that. You don't need to do that. My girls are sat there. My 3 girls are all saying, do we have to go? I was like, no, you don't. No, you don't have to go. Just fucking chill out. Concentrate on your own life. Do what you need to do. It's up to you. I can't see them trying to bring back this conscription. I can't say the word conscription back in, but hey ho, we never know. Everything's a shock at the moment. It's an absolute chaos time to be alive. But yeah, for me, last podcast went really well. As always, I get loads of reflection out of my podcasts. And then it just sort of kind of spiraled and went downhill. I sort of hit the ground running with work. I felt invigorated, yeah, this is good. Another 2026, another good year for it. I feel better in terms I've been in my job for a couple of years. So, I'm getting into a nice steady pace with life. It becomes routine. I know what I'm doing, rah, all the good stuff. And then, it just I don't know, it just massively overwhelmed me, to the point where I had a breakdown last week. A full on meltdown resulted in me messaging close colleagues saying, "Fuck it, I've had enough. This is absolute bullshit." And it took me a couple of days to really get over that. And it's something it was something that was mentioned at work. And I will talk about this, but it was something that was mentioned at work. It was meant as a flippant comment. Probably most people wouldn't have taken offence to it. Some people would have absolutely taken offence to the words that we used against me, or not. We used in a conversation towards me. That's the easiest way to describe it. And there's the middle ground people. Whereas me, I've got quite a thick skin. I'm ex-military. There's not much that offends me as such. I don't get offended by words. Words are words. I try not to emotionally react to words as much as some people do. But last week, I think it was an amalgamation of lots of things that sort of came to sort of fruition and sort of like knocked me sideways, really, which actually resulted in me, like I said, having a breakdown. And now you're sat there going like, just fucking spit it out, mate. Or what the fuck are you talking about? Well, I hit the ground running, as I said, 2026. I'll give you a little bit of this because, maybe you've experienced something like this. I don't know. It can be constituted a bit as like workplace bullying. I suppose you could call it that. But again, I don't get emotional about words. So, and also note that I'm not exactly, I'm always teetering on the edge of popping into HR for things I say anyway. So I don't take offense to things easily because at the same time, I do run my mouth a little bit, especially with the neurodivergent in me and the ADHD. I tend to sort of spit my rhymes a little bit and go, "Oh shit, James, you shouldn't have said that. Suck that in." I'm getting better. I must admit, I'm getting better with maturity. But it's still hard work. It's still hard work. I still get excited about things, as I've told you before in previous podcasts. So what happened? Well, I came back into work. I was given a task to write, and I'm going to bore you a little bit here, but I was given a task to write a standard operating procedure for another team because I'm good at processes. So I was asked to do this process. So I started writing this process, didn't know what to write the process against, just basically pulled it all out of different documentation and sort of drew it all together, pulled it into a nice staged format of a standard operating procedure. Did a pretty good job considering I was doing it blind. And then it was a time to send it out to the team members to basically align with, this is what we're expecting you to do. What do you currently do? Because there's been nothing in place before. So it was like them doing a gap analysis on, what do you do now? This is what you're supposed to be doing. Why are we not doing this? And getting a real sort of SME involvement from them. But at the same time, noting that I'm actually an outsider in the team, coming in and indirectly telling them how to do their job, because that's what a standard operating procedure. I'm writing it to tell them how to do their job. So there was an air of caution from me in terms of I wasn't 100% sure how it was going to be met, because I often think to myself, if someone had to write a standard operating procedure for me to do my job, would that offend me? And I'd be like, it probably would if I've been doing my job for a few years and all of a sudden, you're coming in to tell me how to do my job. Give me a chance to learn how to do the job properly and give me the documentation rather than just coming in ham-fisted. And let me just put this on mute. Sorry. So I'd written it, sent it out to them, and then I walked in to work on the Monday. And this is where it kind of spiraled out of control, really, because not only was I procrastinating on the fact that I was trying to write this SOP, we'll call it as an abbreviation, I was trying to write this SOP on the basis of, no formal knowledge in the process. I was writing it externally and just using contractual documents and using all these documents that were given as guidance, but amalgamating them into one guidance document to make it really easy and streamlined. So I learned a lot. At the same time, I also know that I'm not an SME, so I have to be open, shall we say, to feedback, which I always am, because at the end of the day, feedback should be constructive. If it's constructive, I can do something with it. Anyway, so that was a week. I did that for a week, and then fast forward the end of the week, I delivered it, and then Monday came round, and I walked into the door, and this is basically the start of me having a bit of a breakdown. I'd overworked myself, so I can analyze that now because I've done the reflection over what I'd done, and for me, I definitely overworked myself. And now I walked in, and it was 7:05 in the morning. Bearing in mind that's 7:05. Okay, 7:05 in the morning. Okay, so no one switched on at 7:05. I just want to come in and get my desk. However, I was beelined for, shall we say, when I was walking through with my bag, and then the person who was in the team member, who he's got a bit of a reputation from being a bit chopsy anyway, came up to me and said, he said, James, I'm currently ripping your standard operating procedure apart. And I was like, okay, all right, mate, yeah, no worries, whatever you need to do. As long as it's constructive, I just batted it off, just played it off. And anyway, so he came over to me, started talking to me. And we were talking about the SOP. And then anyway, he just went off on a tangent. He just sort of, we were talking about work, and then all of a sudden he just came out of the blue and said, why have you had your hair cut? And I went, okay, mate. Okay, thanks for asking, because obviously I used to have a top knot, and I used to have my hair right down to the back of my, right down to my lower back. So it's a bit of a shock for some people. And I went, I just fancied a change. And I did. I just fancied a change. In fact, there was underlying things with it, where I was pulling it back like a fucking Essex slapper. I was pulling hairs because I'm getting older. So I was pulling hairs and I was losing all the front of my hair. So my hairline was receding even further back. And I started to look fucking stupid. I started to look like a bit of a slaphead. And I was conscious of that. And I didn't really like the look of it. So I thought I'd go for the fluffy look, where it just sort of kind of hides the widow peak, shall we say. Excuse me, hold on 2 seconds. I just need a sip of water. I had fajitas and they're a bit spicy on the old stomach. So I did over Christmas. I just went, I'm going to go and get my haircut, and literally went and booked this place, got my haircut, and just said, chop it off. I want to go back to the way I was. I've grown it for 2 years. I've done that stage. As I've said to you, I've always wanted to, I think, I said in a previous podcast why I did it. And it was mainly because I wanted to grow my hair. I wanted to say at one point in my life, I grew my hair. Did it look all right? I think it was okay. Actually, feedback has been that I actually looked better with the top knot, which I don't know how to take that, because I've always had my hair like this. So, but hey ho, everyone's got different opinions, haven't they? So he then proceeded to say, so I said to him, yeah, I cut it off because I wanted to change. I said, and I made a bit of a joke about it. I said, oh, this is corporate James, so I have to, I've changed my appearance to fit in, shall we say. Now, something I hate doing. I absolutely, as a neurodivergent, I hate changing how I am to fit in, because I don't like, I've always gone against the grain. However, I'm in this situation now where I'm not progressing, and I think that there's little tiny efforts that I can be making to slightly change the perception of me, because I am a bit bolshy, I'm a bit loud, I can say things off the cuff, and I am very direct. So some of those things have to be calmed down by your appearance, because the last thing you want to be doing is come across as, somebody who's in a senior position, who's got fucking top knot, tattoos everywhere, in a corporate environment, a bit bolshy, swears a little bit, and is very direct. You've got to be careful. You've got to soften the edges. So I thought to myself, well, there's a quick win, really. I've done the hair growth. I've got the beard, so that's fine. I was able to maintain and retain the beard. So I cut the hair. So I said to him, that's what I said. That was a long way around it. Basically what I said was, this is corporate James. I've cut my hair, just an off-cuff to choice. I said, he said, well, is that for promotion? And I said to him, yeah. Well, I said, I'm hoping it will help. I'm hoping, and I did say, hope it's going to soften the edges, soften the edges on a little bit. So I'm not as loud and brash, because I can be loud and brash. Who'd have knew? So he went, oh, and then he made a flippant comment. And this is the flippant comment that I'm going to tell you that he made, that made me laugh a little bit, but also at the same time, I procrastinated on it a bit too much. And basically turned around and goes, oh yeah, we've noticed you want to get promoted. And I went, oh right. He said, yeah, quite a few of us have noticed you're sucking the right dick, is the exact way he put it. And I went, oh, okay. I said, well, I don't think I am. I said, I'm just coming in, doing my job and going home. And he said, oh no, we all noticed. And he did the sign, you're sucking the old dick. And I thought to myself, okay, well, fair enough. If that's your opinion of me, let's be done. Let's be done. I said, whatever. So I kind of went, oh, haha, put my bag on, and went back to my desk and just sat down, set up for the day. And then those comments. So not only, this was at 7:05, I'd had him tell me he was ripping my standard operating procedure apart, and also telling me that I was sucking dick to get promoted. Now, I took offense to that, and I shouldn't have done. I shouldn't have taken offense to it, really, because it's not like me to be offended. And I also acknowledge that that's his wording. I also acknowledge that the person in particular has never got promoted because of the way they are. So there's probably, I've been told, again, I've not been there long enough to understand his historic, I only know snippets of his historic behavior issues. And then basically it sort of led into, me sort of overthinking it. But that led into me overthinking it for 3 or 4 days, where I'd come home and gone, is that what people think about me? Do people think I'm sucking dick to try and get promoted? I'm literally just coming in, I'm giving 110%. I do everything I can, and then I go home. I said, that I don't understand where this is coming from. So I procrastinated on that, as anyone with a neurodivergent fucking mind would. And I sat in here most nights going, I don't know what I've fucking got to do. I said, like, I'm just trying to be myself. I'm trying to be happy. I'm trying to help people as much as I can. I'm just trying to do my job. Yes, I want to get promoted, because the promotion comes, I've said to you before, promotion comes knowing your worth, knowing your value, knowing where you think you should sit in the food chain, and giving everything to get there. So that's what I do. I give 110% to make sure I can get there. And obviously, there's other benefits that come with this. You're then part of the, you're then part of the grown-ups table, as well as you get a bit of financial reward because you get extra money. So there's all these little things that come with it. But ultimately, for me, it's about being recognised and being respected for the hard work you'd put in. So that's where I go through. That's my mindset. I want to get promoted so that I can make decisions and I can influence change. So that is a really important part for me, because I can see there's lots of change that's needed, and I go, I'd like to try and use my neurodivergent mind to try and make the changes, or at least highlight the changes that I think need to happen. So I procrastinated on that quite a bit. And I did, overplayed to the point where I started getting a little bit angry about it. I started getting a little bit frustrated about it. That led into me taking it into work, because I wasn't sleeping very well. I was overthinking it until 2-3 o'clock in the morning. I wasn't getting proper sleep. And then by Thursday, I think I'd completely broken. I'd actually broken on Thursday. I'd gone in, and my boss had run through the SOP with me, standard operating procedure, just in case you missed that last bit. And he ran through it with me, and basically came to me with loads of feedback. But the feedback was really hard to decipher for me, because it was verbal feedback. I really struggle with verbal feedback. I prefer written feedback, because written feedback gives me time to decipher what his requested changes against what the current format is, so I can kind of try and piece it together. So it's easier for me to understand through written direction than it is through verbal direction. Verbal direction gets lost, and then also there's nothing to trace back. So I don't like verbal instructions. I prefer written instructions, because that's my preferred option. I will take both, but I prefer written. So I started stressing out because I couldn't decipher what he'd said, because he'd said it verbally to me, and I couldn't write it down quick enough. And what I was doing was writing down words, going, yeah, okay, I've got that. And then I'd go away and do something else, and then I'd come back, and then I'd forget what I was putting it to, and I couldn't put my notes to where I needed the things to be. So honestly, the breakdown was immense. I literally came home that Thursday night. So this was Wednesday night. So this was Wednesday. Monday and Tuesday I procrastinated on it. Wednesday I'd come in, and that was when I had the feedback. Wednesday night I went home, and I'd fucking broken down. I'd had enough. I literally was like, I don't know what the fuck I've got to do here. I don't know how to do this. I don't know why people are perceiving me like this. And I really took a really negative turn. So I then messaged my boss, and I had a fucking full meltdown. I said to him at the start, I'm really sorry for venting. I said, but this has really infuriated me. And he said, don't worry, vent away, because that's his, that we've got a trusted relationship that I can vent, and I know it's not going to go anywhere. So I vented, and then basically he didn't respond. So I thought I'd fucked him off as well. And that's my mindset. I thought everyone was against me, which I'm sure if you're a neurodivergent, you can relate to. You think people are against you all the time. And I was like, I don't know what I've got to do to make this work. I said, and to the point where I'd gone into flight mode. I'd absolutely gone in. I said to him, I don't see a career here. I want a fucking new job. I've had enough of this. I can't be fucking arsed with people that are treating me like this, and that no one understands the fucking process. I said, I just don't get it. And I'd had this full meltdown in this text message. Anyway, thought nothing of it. And then Thursday came in, and my supervisor, if you like, but the supervisor looks after us from a people perspective, literally came at me and said, you really fucking pissed me off, James, by sending me that text message. What the hell is wrong? And I was like, I thought you knew. There was loads of things going on, and it. When I say it spiraled out of control, what had happened was I spoke to someone about this issue in work, and what was said, which then got relayed to another supervisor who then felt that they need to come in and make sure I was okay. Well, that was a good bit, because of course we want to make sure that person doesn't feel bullied or ostracized or feel horrible. So they came in, and I sat down, we had an informal chat, and I went, oh well, basically what happened was this, and this. I thought, I've got a fairly thick skin. I don't take offense to it, but however, I would suggest you engage with them on a one-to-one basis to note that if they say the similar thing to someone else that might not have as thick a skin as me, or they might get offended, they might get treated, they might get told off for bullying, they might get sacked for bullying, I don't know, they may get a disciplinary, I don't know. I said, so just if you've got your one-to-ones coming up, I would suggest that you potentially use my example as a way of not talking to somebody like that, because it can be perceived in the wrong way. And I'm not making a complaint. I am just formally saying to you that was, yes, that has been said, because it came around the houses. I said, yes, that was said. I haven't taken offense to it. Move on. She said to me, can you send me an email with what was said? And I was like, yeah, no problem. So I just put it in an email. In hindsight now, would I put it in an email? No, I wouldn't have done, because once you put it in an email, it's written down. It's easy to read, isn't it, when you put it in an email, because you put down what the problem was. So you've indirectly made a formal complaint without actually making a formal complaint. Anyway, that transpired. That not only that came back to me in a very HR format, shall I say, very protective format, that you shouldn't accept this, I don't accept this, this is constitutions of bullying and all this, and I seriously think you should make a change for making this into a formal complaint. All too much for me. I was like, no, my emotions are running high as it is. I don't want to make a formal complaint. I don't want to do anything about it. I would rather you did an informal conversation with that person to say, please don't do this, be mindful who you're talking to and how you talk to people. It's not very professional. And what I will do on the back of that is I will go and have a chat with them one-to-one, and I will explain to them that I did take partial offense to it, because I thought it was out of order, because I work hard for what I do. I certainly, if it was down to sucking dick, I'd have been promoted years ago, because I'd have perfected that fucking technique with the right person. If that's how easy it was to get promoted as a man, sucking penis, I'd suck dick and I'd get me promoted. And so that's what I would have said. And actually, what I did say was, I did go up to him and say to him, because we did have a one-to-one, this had all spiraled out of control, and I have booked in a one-to-one, sorry, for him on Monday, tomorrow, for me. Just a private chat, just to say, look, mate, if you're going to say these things, just be mindful that not everybody will receive your joke, your humor in the same way. I said, telling someone they're sucking dick to get promoted, if it is somebody that is blatantly doing that and not doing their job, I would kind of understand. But I said, I put 110% in. So I know that's not what I need to do. I can come and I can do my job and I can crack on with it. So I booked a one-to-one with him, and that's the way I was going to go. Informal, keep it nice and level playing field, not disrupt anyone's careers, but just be mindful about how you approach people. Also noting that there's plenty of neurodivergence in our team, in our corporate environment, if you like. So you might say that just to the wrong person. I said, and you really need to be mindful of that. I said, because somebody could walk away and take that as offensive. That ultimately then you've potentially lost your career. You've lost everything. So just for the sake of a flippant comment. So it sort of spiraled out of control and sort of led into really my weekend, really. So my weekend yesterday was very much trying to reflect on things, trying to understand where I'd gone wrong. I'd had really good conversations on the Thursday with the right people to say, and the right people came back to me and said, look, it's just jealousy. Don't ignore it. It's a common theme for this person to do that. They try and sort of deflect and they think it's funny humor. It's not. Don't worry about it. It's all being dealt with on a one-to-one basis. If you want to go formal, you can. We fully back you and support you. If you don't want to go formal, it's totally up to you. So I was like, well, I don't want to go formal, because it always, when you go formal with these sorts of things, always bites you in the fucking ass. Always bites you in the ass. Because you'll always look like you're the person that's, come back and gone. I mean, it's always going to be one word against another, which is, not a reason to not go ahead and do it and go formal, because I think in the right circumstances, you need to. And again, it'd be interesting to know what you think of that. Would you go formal on a situation like that? Because I didn't, and I stand by my decision not to. I've got something in my. I stand by my decision not to, because for me, it's just not worth it. It's not worth the hassle, and you always come out worse because it's your word against theirs. There's no evidence, so then you just drag everyone through the mill, and then ultimately you then become the snake. You become the snitches get stitches guy. You're that guy at the end. Don't say anything around him. He can't be trusted, and I'm like, I can be trusted. I said, but be mindful about what you say. There is a language and a tone that you can use with certain people, but also acknowledge that there's a line. There's a professional line that we all need to uphold. It's okay if you're in a safe space. Maybe he thought he was in a safe space with me to be able to say what he wanted and not really have a worry about it. And I think that maybe he could have done. But as soon as you start mentioning my career, which is the one thing that I can control, and I did say this to my supervisor, I said, she said to me, why does it upset you? And I said, well, it's upset me because the career part of me is the only thing I can control. I can't control my mind. It's really hard to control an ADHD autistic brain. It really is. It never goes well. Never fucking fun. You're constantly in overdrive. You're constantly wanting stability. You're constantly wanting routine. But at the same time, the ADHD side of me is constantly wanting spontaneity. It's just it's a constant battle. But the one thing I can control is how much effort I put into work and how I perceive and how I do my job. And I always give 110%, and I always do it to the highest standards that I can. If there's a standard to be achieved that's higher than what I am currently, tell me it, teach me how to get there, and I will make it happen. But that's my ethos. I'm constant. That's the one thing I've been able to control all my life is my work. I've always been able to control it. It's a very easy thing to control for me, which is a very nice thing for me to be able to feel comfortable and happy. And I always say, I spend 8 to 9 hours minimum in work every day, 5 days a week. I want to be able to enjoy that environment. If I don't enjoy that environment and I'm there for 8 to 9 hours a day, I'm going to be a very unhappy man. So for me, it's kind of a way of, if I can control it, I can control my output. If my output is high and good quality, I often get good reward. People thank me. That hits my dopamine. That hits my serotonin. That makes me feel like I'm worthy of something. That makes me feel like I'm happy. That makes me feel like I'm productive. So when I do come home and I crash out in here and I just sit at the ceiling and stare at the ceiling for 2 to 3 hours, I don't mind so much because I know I've given 110% for 8 to 9 hours at work. So people say to me, work isn't everything. And I go, for me, it is. And that sounds really fucking sad, I know. But if you're an autistic brain, having routine structure and being able to achieve 110% and get reward for it, it ticks all the boxes that I need to be happy in life. I don't get the general happiness that everybody else does. That's the bit that a lot of people forget, is you don't get happy from the small things. It's always the big things that make you happy. It's the big things that you have to put a lot of effort into, but it gives you high risk, high reward is often what gives me the dopamine. The little low, nuances, things like a cuddle, I do like cuddling, so that's a bit of a bad thing, but analogy. But little things in life I don't get excited about. I don't get excited about the small things in life. The things that you go, if someone says to you, I love you, oh, okay, cheers, no, thanks, mate. I don't get excited about that, and I have no emotion. Well, I keep saying this as well. And I need to address that. I do have emotion. I'm actually very emotional. I don't show it. I don't display it. I don't cry. However, I am very passionate, and I am very emotional in the sense that if someone hurts me or affects me, I find it very hard to get past that. I even said to my boss, I was like, it's really weird because if someone affects me, I take it home and I argue with that person. In my head, I'm arguing. So I argued with that person for 2 nights till 2-3 o'clock in the morning. I was sat there going like, why did he say this? What have I done wrong? Why am I being perceived like that? What am I doing at work that's making me be perceived like that? Who am I engaging with? What's my start time? What's my finish time? All of these questions were burning through my head constantly. And then I was going like, what would I say to him if he said that to me again? Why would I should have stood up for myself, or should I have just walked away? I don't know. I went through every scenario and I was sat there going, I can't fucking win here. So all I was doing was exhausting myself. And then I was going into work trying to fucking do 8 to 10 hours, 8 to 9 hours on high max like I normally do. I couldn't do it. I burnt myself out. And for the first time, I actually said to my boss, I'm burnt out. And I never ever admit to burnout because I don't believe in burnout. For me, I don't get burnout as in the more work you put on me, it doesn't bother me because the more work you put on me, the more um, the higher the expectation. Again, the higher the risk, the higher the reward. So for me, I don't mind a workload. What I do mind is when people perceive me differently, I'm very much a person that I like to be perceived as a kind person. I like to be perceived in a nice way. I don't like a negative perception of me. I very much am like Marmite. I can 110% tell you I'm like Marmite. You will either love me or hate me, and there's people out there that genuinely hate me, and fair play to them. I've probably upset them. I've probably said something, or I've probably done something or highlighted something. I don't know. Maybe I've done something wrong, but I know there's people out there that hate me. But I know there's people out there that also love me because I like to bring the party. I like to bring the good stuff. I like to bring the high standards. I like to bring the commitment, the loyalty, the trust. That is something I said. I said this to my boss the other day. I said, if there's anything you can count on from me, it's loyalty and trust. Trust and loyalty are my key things in life. Once you're in that circle of trust, once you're in my little circle of trust, all day long, I will defend you. I will protect you. I will look after you. I will do everything I can to make you feel safe and as comfortable as you can be in your environment. I'll look after you. And I don't mean that in a mollycoddle type of way. I mean, as in like, you're in a fast paced environment. There's lots of issues coming on board. We need to look after each other. And I said to him, I will absolutely, you can count on me 110%. There's 110% in everything today, I've noticed, which is I need to slow down with. Oh, God, my arm. Another thing I'm really fucked off with this year is it is how age is really, really affecting me. This is the first time this year where my shoulders ache, my elbows ache, my fucking back aches, my knees ache. I'm just sat there going, fuck, I cannot be arsed with getting old. If this is what old is, and it's really crazy because you say for years, that you do what you can, you hit the weights, you lots of I've done loads of shit as a fucking young lad, weight training, heavy weight training, all sorts of crazy shit, and I always said no, I won't feel the pain when I'm older. I'll look after myself. Fucking hell, I feel it now. I'm exhausted all the time. Now my hip is giving me jip. I got a bad hip there. I just lifted my shoulder from resting on it, and I went, oh God, oh fucking, and even there, I'm just like, you bastard. You bastard. I fucking hate getting old. It is a bastard, especially if you've done a physical job. And I think that didn't help that for years I have done a physical job all my life. I've military and spraying aircraft. I've always been spraying left hand, right hand, orbital sanders, working on aircraft for 12 hours a day, 4 days a week shifts, things like that. So you don't realize at the time, you think you're a spring chicken, but it's not until your muscles start deteriorating and then your body starts going, well, here we go, mate. This is the pain train. This is what you're on from now on. It's absolutely fucking crazy. And it's sort of kind of, actually, that draws me nicely into something I want to talk about here. But mental health side of things. It's wrapped around emotion, actually. And I saw a podcast the other day, and it hit home. It really did hit home. And a couple of people talking about it. It's nice, actually, to see lots more people, lots more men talking openly on podcasts and on TikToks and Facebook or social media platforms about men's mental health. It really is. Don't get me wrong. I'm not here to say that, and I'm a big advocate for saying that men don't feel, that women feel just as much as men. Absolutely, but again, I'll always revert back to the statistics. But it was interesting. I saw this podcast the other day, and it really did hit home about how men, and I spoke about it a little bit on my last podcast. Men are raised differently, and it's and I can contest to this because I can appreciate this because I have 3 daughters, and very much if they hurt themselves when they were younger or anyone hurt them. You're very, very protective. You're very defensive. You wrap them up in cotton wool. If they hurt themselves, it's how can I make that pain go away? You might kiss the, if you graze their knee, you might kiss the knee. Oh, it'll take the pain away. You might give them a little plaster on there. You really look after them, give them a cuddle. You make them feel like secure and you make them feel happy. And we talk about that side of things, but tell me that I'm not telling the truth here. But if a boy hurts himself, 9 times out of 10, that boy is told to man up. That boy is told, rub it off, crack on, go on, get out. Don't be stupid. It's a little nick. It's a little bit of this. And I mean, I remember me. I remember. I used to fight quite heavily with my brother. I had a younger brother. I still got a younger brother. Not had. I have a younger brother, and we used to fight like cats and dogs when we're 2 years apart. And I remember my mum, and I put this to my mum, to my dad actually the other day, and I said, because we were talking about being raised in the 80s and how being raised is different, and my dad said, I couldn't raise children in today's society, and I was like, you couldn't, no way. I said, prime example, me and my brother were fighting. We were scrapping away. My mum couldn't break us up. She'd had enough. She reached the end of her tether, as she put it. And she came in and she fucking whacked a wooden spoon on top of my head. And it broke the wooden spoon in half. A wooden fucking spoon. Donk on the top of your head. I looked up at her and laughed. Because, I don't know. Well, we do now because I don't fucking care. Because I'm ADHD autistic. But I said to my dad, what if I told you that my daughters were fighting, and bear in mind I've got daughters, so I told you they were fighting, and I came in and I twatted them on top of the head with a wooden spoon? What would you say? Well, I wouldn't. You wouldn't do that. They're the girls. Nail on the head. They're girls. But what if that had been boys? Well, yeah, they need a fucking smack. Okay, why? Why do boys need a smack? Why, if a boy falls over, do you rub the fucking mark and crack on? You don't show that boy the same affection. This is where I say boys and men, or men, have absolute terrible time expressing emotion. We are emotional people. We are emotional. And it's really, really, it's an amazing time to be alive in 2026, to see the evolution of women getting into high-end executive jobs. They're not just the nurses anymore. They're not just, the healthcare workers, or they're not just HR staff anymore. We're seeing women like equal opportunities. We're seeing them do men things. We're seeing female pilots. We're seeing females on the front line. We're seeing female in executive positions, high power positions. We're seeing women treated, with equal opportunities to men in the workplace. However, we don't see that for men, because men haven't evolved. We still don't treat men the same way. We still treat boys now in 2026. We still treat them the same way we did in the 90s, the 80s, the 70s, the 60s, the 50s. We still treat them, maybe not the 50s, because in the 50s, if you were a kid, you'd have been fucking doing chimney sweeping, wouldn't you? And again, did you ever see a female? Did you ever see a young girl up a chimney? No. You took a young boy. You took the smallest young boy, who was obviously going to be sort of, not fully developed. And we say to him, climb up a fucking pipe with no respirator, no nothing, because your dad's telling you, get up that fucking pipe, mate, and fucking chimney sweep. But you never expected a girl to do that. And that's the difference for me. They often talk about women, and I saw this on a podcast, women saying that they're statistically they've had enough of raising men. And I think to myself, they don't want to get with men to have to raise them and treat them like children. And I say that's because our brains are still like children, because we've never been cuddled. We've never been told it's okay. We've never had a plaster put on our arm. You often see a boy, he'll fall over, break his wrist on a fucking mountain bike or a motorbike or a fucking scooter or a skateboard, whatever, break his wrist, get it cast up. What will that boy be doing the next day? Back out on the fucker. I fucking was. When I broke my scaphoid, I was back out on the fucker. I was straight out the next day. In fact, the next day I came in when I broke my scaphoid, and I broke my scaphoid, little tiny bone in your wrist it is. Now, it was 100% my fault. I drank a pint of Aftershock. Fuck, that was a fucking... Do you know what? I can remember it as crystal clear, and it was that long ago. We're talking 20 odd years ago now. I smashed my wrist because I got absolutely fucking shedded, and I was scrapping with my brother at the time, actually, and I went to fucking hit him because we were fucking arguing in our 20s. Nothing changes. And he moved out of the way because I was pissed. I fell over, smashed my fucking elbow. So I'm not looking for sympathy because I don't want sympathy. but I broke my wrist. And then I remember going in to the doctors on the next day and went, I've done something to my wrist, mate. And I was doing this, I was moving it around. He went, oh, just keep moving it. You'll be all right. And then I did that for a week. I was under the aircraft, and I was in the RAF at the time. I was stripping under the aircraft, paint stripper in. And it was a massive, I had a full regalia on, full mask on, gloves on, just like that. Fucking absolute, getting this paint off with this paint stripper, covered in shit. And that was on a Monday that I got told to just carry on. And on a Thursday, I was like, there's something not right here. This is fucking getting worse. This is painful. I'm waking up and I'm angry because of the pain. So I went into work at 3:00 and I said, look, I'm just going to go to the med center. I'm just going to ask about this again. And I went to the med center and I saw a different doctor. And the doctor turned to me and said, you need to go to have an x-ray, mate, because it shouldn't be that stiff 4 days on. And I went into went to hospital and they did an x-ray and they said, yeah, you broke your scaphoid. You should be in a cast. But I carried on. Again, you carry on. And that's the difference between men, because that's how we were taught to be. You were taught to carry on. You're not taught to be mollycoddled. You're not taught to be cuddled and go, it's going to be okay. We don't know if it's going to be okay. We just know that we've still got to provide. We've still got to get out there. We've still got to prove ourselves. We've still got to be committed. No, it doesn't matter how much. Like now, my body fucking aches. So someone is, I don't want to get out of bed, but I know I've got to go out. I've got to go to bed. My dad is 71 this year, and he's had fucking gout in his foot and his knee, so fucking bad. He just carried on going, and all he was doing was taking ibuprofen for it and naproxen and making himself ill. It transpired, actually, when he went and got a blood test done, the gout was that bad it wouldn't go away after 2 sets of antibiotics. Went in and did a blood test, and they actually found out he had cancer, as well as he had cancer in the lymph nodes and the prostate. So luckily for him, the cancer treatment, the cancer was picked up in the blood test, but no relation to gout. But at the same time, he carried on going for the 2 weeks in work, could hardly walk. You could see it in his face, the grimace in his face of pain. And I was like, you need to go home, mate. And he's like, no, I'm not. I'm here. I've got up. I'm done. I'll carry on. And that's the thing. That's the biggest. The biggest thing that has not evolved is how we treat men when they're younger, boys. We still don't do it. We don't mollycoddle them. We shout. We still smack them. I still see boys getting fucking smacked. Why? You don't smack girls. We've completely eradicated smacking. We sort of, but boys, you still get them. You still see them getting smacked. But I can tell you now, I've never laid a hand on any 3 of my kids. Tell a lie. I did once, and the guilt was so fucking bad that it cost me hundreds of pounds in things I needed to fucking buy for my daughter because I felt so guilty that I'd smacked her. And that was on the leg. And I just felt so fucking bad because, and to be fair, to put it into context, the reason I smacked her was she had a full fucking paddy breakdown at 4 and threw a plastic chair at the door with me holding the door shut and started banging the fucking door. She had a full meltdown, and I was like, I don't know what to do here. I'm a new parent, my firstborn, fucking smack, because that was how I was taught. And instantly, I was like, "What are you doing? You don't hit girls. What the fuck are you doing, mate?" And I felt so fucking guilty. But if that was a boy, would I have felt guilty for that? I doubt it. I doubt I would have done, because boys are treated differently, and they wonder why men don't talk about their emotions, why men bottle things up, why men get to the point where they are so. Like, I sit there, and when I'm having these arguments in my head about things that have happened at work or things that have happened at home, and I sit there and I procrastinate on this, and I go, I'd love to talk to someone about this, but I can't talk to someone about this because it means nothing to them, but it's in my head. However, when people come up to me and talk to me about things, I sit there and I listen with intent, and I offer support. I've even had women come up to me at work and talk to me about issues they've had with their husbands. Oh, my husband's done this. And I go, oh, you need to do this, this, and this. You need to help him because he's crying out for help. But it's just amazing how even I know of somebody at work, their husband was almost suicidal and didn't get out of bed for weeks on end. And she didn't know what to do. And she just went, he'll be okay. He'll let me know when he needs me. A man will never let you know if he needs you or not. It's such a rarity that, and this is the crux of why I started this 4 years ago. I started this whole podcast on the basis of feeling shit and not knowing who to talk to. So here I am talking to the camera. but it is a hard time, and we haven't evolved from that. We really have not evolved. We've got women in, and I say the path for women, keep going. Absolutely. We're starting to see so many good things of having women in power positions, and also women come to the table with a natural empathy because they are naturally paternal. So, for me, a woman in power is nothing short of a good thing. It's an amazing thing because they can bring to the party compassion. I get on better with women in workplace because they have passion and empathy than I do for men, because men are just cutthroat. They'll just fucking chuck you under a bus. They do not give a shit. But women, they'll offer you a listening ear, and I have a rapport with so many different women where they'll talk to me about their issues, and I'll offer them advice, or they'll talk to me about their partners, and I go, you need to do this, because I'm open and honest. I try to be as open and honest as I can, because it is a hard fucking place to be as a man. If this is not an ideal world, and I say that even to the point where, men are men because you're designed to go out, you're designed to lift heavy things, dig, build, and we're in a situation where we've got an evolution of machinery. You don't see men digging anymore, do you? Because we've got diggers for that. We've got mechanical diggers. We've got motorized JCBs. You don't see men laying railways. I couldn't say that then. You don't see men laying railways anymore because we've got a machine that goes along and does it all for you. We don't see men laying tarmac anymore. That's done by fucking machines. But at the same time, so you've got women taking over, taking it in power positions, which is, again, great. Keep it going. I'm not saying it's a negative at all. But we've got this abundance of men that aren't being utilized for what we are, because men were always stronger, bigger, stronger. Yeah, men, go get food. Yeah, men, dig. Make fire. Don't need that anymore now, mate. I've got a fucking lighter. I got a lighter for that. I don't need to dig a hole, mate. I've got a fucking JCB for that. Do you know what I mean? We'll put some fence posting in. Don't worry about it, mate. I've got a machine. Fucking bore a hole in, put a post in, put postcrete in, put a bit of water in, it's fucking dry. You don't even have the cement mixer anymore. The old school cement mixer. So what are men doing? We're in a world where we don't need to be strong. We don't really need to be athletic. We don't really need to be strong-minded, but we haven't evolved where we're allowing men to be empathetic. That's the issue. We're not allowing men to talk about their problems and issues. And then we wonder, I was only chatting to my wife the other day about this, and she said, I think suicide's selfish. And I said, that's a really selfish way of looking at it. Why is suicide? Because you've left everything behind. I said, because nobody wants to listen to the man talk. Nobody wants to listen to the man's issues and woes. Yet we'll sit and listen to women all day long. Don't get me wrong. There is areas. I get there is areas, and I'm not. This is a broad overview of that, so please don't take that as a negative against women, because I know there's a lot of women out there that do struggle. I also think that women are quite catty towards each other, so it sometimes is hard to open up. But if you find the right woman, talking to another woman's easy. Glass of wine, some chocolates, some ice cream, whatever it may be, or a night out, you have a good time. Men don't do that. Men, in the only way that men now get their release, so go out, get drunk, have a fight, because that's the only way to release our anger. We have an abundance of testosterone, and people underestimate. Like, you talk about you talk about periods, and you say periods, the hormones are fucking horrendous, and I go, yeah, okay, I live with 4 women, so fucking I can tell you right now, it is horrendous. I've got a daughter that I get probably 4 good days out of a month where she'll talk to me. The rest of the time, she will not talk to me unless she physically wants something. And even then, it's a transactional process. Can I have some money out of my savings? That's it. There's no love there. Well, there is love there, but there's no hurt. So I get that is all attached to hormones. I get it. But don't underestimate the power of testosterone, and having something fueling around your body, telling you to be angry, heightening your adrenaline with nothing to do to use it. You don't go into work now because we're all mollycoddled at work. Can't raise your voice at work. So even at work, you don't get shouted at. Gone are the days where, I mean, I remember joining in the military and you were shouted at. If you did not make your bed pack, you were screamed at. If you weren't on fucking parade at a certain time, you were screamed at. That's what it was. You were shouted at. Yes, listen, 20 press ups, and it's all, that's what the military's about. It's all about that bravado. It's all about getting out that spirit, getting out the testosterone, keeping men going. There's nothing in there at the moment. AI is making things even worse because we've got this influx of artificial intelligence, which has taken over a load of computer roles, which has taken a load of data roles. We've got machinery doing our digging. What are men doing? We're at an all-time low for men not being in nursing positions and doctor positions and healthcare positions because men don't want to do that. Yes, men need to evolve, but it's not because they don't want to do it. It's because they're not trained to be emotional. We're not taught to be emotional right from the core of being born. We are not taught to be emotional. We are taught right from a very get-go. Tell me now that you don't treat your son, don't you? When you see your son fall over, if you're watching this as a man, or you watch this as a woman who has a man, and you've got a son, I guarantee the man still has that ethos that he goes, brush it off, don't be stupid. Or you've been a knobhead, little clip around the back of the head. You still get it. We're not taught. We're not taught to listen to ourselves. We're not taught to, find safety. We are safety. Men are the safety net. So it's so important that for me, that's one of the biggest next steps, I think, in evolution that we need to try and get hold of is we very much need to try and get ourselves to a talking position, let alone, other issues and stuff that we need to talk about. I absolutely get that. But I there's not one person in my group of friends, male friends, not one of them hasn't experienced mental health, but also not one of them has experienced it and not talking. All of them have never spoke about it until I raise it. I'll raise it and I'll be like, no, let's fucking talk about this, mate, because I know what it's like to sit and procrastinate on things and sit and feel that lack of worth. But that's the one thing that we have not evolved to do, and it's a scary time because we're moving into more of a difficult time in the sense that we've got men that don't know what to do with that abundance of adrenaline, that abundance of testosterone. We're not in a situation where we can do anything with it. So and then what we do is you just build it all up. We build the anger up. You go home and then you wonder why. You go home and a man loses his keys, and the next thing you know, he's smashing his shit out of the fucking house because he's lost his keys and phone. Because that's his build up of testosterone. He doesn't know how to release it. Because what he's probably done is had things backing up in his head that he's not thought about. But we don't talk about it. This is what needs to change. Absolutely needs to change is men talking. I've written some notes, so I'm going to break into a little topic. I spoke about a couple of topics there, but I've written a plethora of notes, as you know me. I know I like to take my notes. And basically, what's that saying? That's what I was going to talk about. So I'm talking about coping mechanisms here. So basically, let me just put my leg up there. Hold on a second. And I was getting bad hips there. My old bones, I tell you, they're not good. I was talking about coping mechanisms because 2 weeks ago I had my final NHS autism assessment. So I was diagnosed privately, basically. And then I went through the NHS route to get it formally recognised because there's obviously this abundance of diagnosis where people have been going to private psychiatrists and paying to get diagnosed. Now, the biggest issue with paying to be diagnosed is there's an incentive for a doctor to diagnose you because he's being paid. So if you pay a doctor privately, a psychiatrist privately to diagnose you, and you pay, I don't know, £1,000 or 500 quid, whatever it may be. I think mine was about £450, just under £500 for the original diagnosis, like 8 years ago. And I wanted to know, and I didn't want to wait on the NHS waiting list. So I was like, I'm going to go and see a private psychiatrist. Now, I didn't really look at it. I was kind of short-sighted, really. And that short-sightedness came later on in life when I realised that I've paid somebody to tell me I'm neurodivergent, basically. So that person is going to tell me what I need to hear. So if I go in with passion and I go in with like, I'm feeling this, and this, and this is happening to me, and I'm doing this, and you've paid them £450, they're going to tell you, yeah, you've got it. Because why? Because if you walked away with not being diagnosed, you're going to think that person's a fucking failure. You're going to think that person's lying. Whereas if you pay that money, that person money, and they tell you you have got it, number one, you're not going to go back because you've been validated. Which that's all. Basically, what you've done is paid for a validation because you've gone privately. So you kind of go, okay, right, I don't need to go back. What you are going to then do is you are then going to take that diagnosis and go to your friend and say, oh yeah, I got diagnosed by this doctor. Oh, did you? I swear I've got it. I swear I've got it. Okay, so what do? You get a referral. So most of these places do a referral price. So you'll get a £50 voucher back, and they'll get £50 off, and they'll get theirs for £400, and then you kind of go down that. You go down that route. So there's an incentive there to diagnose you. Now, I never really looked at that. I just looked at it. I was fucking batshit crazy. I didn't know what was going on. I wanted to get diagnosed. It wasn't until I came to the point where I needed medication, and then I went through the medication route, and they said to me, no, you've paid privately. We're not going to recognise that through the NHS. We're certainly not going to give you a prescription at an NHS price for something you've been diagnosed by, I said that twice there, someone that's diagnosed you with an incentive to diagnose you. If you go through the NHS, the one thing, yes, it is a lengthy waiting list, but the one thing with the NHS is there's no incentive to diagnose it. If anything, they don't want to diagnose you because you then become less of a burden on the benefit system, or you become less of a burden on the medication system, or you become less of a burden on the psychiatry system. So they really don't, there is no incentive for them to diagnose you. So you get a truer reflection on, you get a truer report on what your diagnosis is. So about 8 years ago, I was diagnosed, which is enough for me to go away and kind of learn a bit about myself. But then I wanted to get medicated, and I wanted to try the medication, and they said to me they didn't recognize it. So that's when my journey with the NHS started. And I got diagnosed in 2021, I think it was, with ADHD. And then I was on another waiting list for 2.5 years for autism. Which was delayed again because I was delayed because of a load of medication issues with my ADHD. So the whole thing got, that was it. And then the company that I went through, the NHS, moved to a different company. So I had to go through a year transitional period of going to a different company and moving all that over. Finally got my final assessment for autism. And I was diagnosed formally through the NHS with level 1 autism. So, which was good because it was good because it validated my initial diagnosis, which was good, but also it gave me that validation that something that there was something wrong with me. Not wrong with me, because I don't like saying that. There's something different about me, and I'd had a 2-hour interview, which it's quite lengthy to talk about yourself, and then you have to do a load of forms to fill out first. Then my wife filled out a load of forms, and then my mother filled out a load of forms. So basically, they give you an independent overview of some of the challenges you face. So what it does is it gives you, it's not just me sitting there and going, I feel this, I'm doing this, yes, I've done this, because we can all read stuff now. There's enough stuff on the internet to tell you what you would experience. So yeah, you can fucking blag it if you really wanted to. I never wanted to. So what they look for is an independent person to tell you and validate what you're saying is true. And that came about. You just recommend person, and then they write it independently. So it's good in that sense. So I got that final diagnosis. One of the things that she said to me is after the 2-hour interview, there's 2 people on the panel. One person's asking you questions, and one person's looking at your body language and how you answer and what you do when you answer. And both of them said to me at the end, resounding response and feedback was, I've developed very, very good masking coping mechanisms. She said, every answer, it was only when we came to answer you, the nail in the coffin for me was, she said to me, how do you feel about empathy with other people? And I said, what do you mean? She goes, I said, well, I don't really understand empathy. She goes, well, and then she went, leading question was, well, how does that work out in your family then with your girls, because they must be emotional? I said, well, I don't really do crying. I said, I just want to pat you on the back, and tell me how to make it better and I'll make it better. But let's move I look at crying as just an inconvenience for me, because I don't know how to deal with that. So it's a very awkward situation for me. And she said, well, do you not feel empathy? What about somebody that was religious, for instance? And I said, what do you mean? She said, well, if they're religious, are you empathetic about their religion? I said, well, no. I said, religion's up to them. I said, I absolutely do not believe in religion at all. I said, as far as I'm concerned, if there's a God and it helps you pass over to another life and helps you feel better, I said, but at the end of the day, we die, we get put in the ground, insects eat us, that's it. That's the end of your life. Make the most of it where you can. And I think personally, the sooner you realize that, the sooner you'll have a better time in life. Most religions, or religion is mainly a format to instigate war, is the way I look at it. So, and that's my true opinion. I'm very, very much I'm very non-religious. I don't believe in it. I think it just creates wars, and I've seen some very negative situations, especially more notably when I saw a young lad about 7 or 8 years old blow his legs off, and come into young lad with no legs from the testicles down, blown off by putting an IED down in Afghanistan, and his younger sister stepping on the pressure plate whilst he was still connecting it. So she was stood on it accidentally whilst he was connecting it. When he connected it, blew his fucking legs off. Now, he came in, and all he wanted to do, this 7-8-year-old, I think he was about 7 or 8 years old, if I recall, all he wanted to do was kill me, and I was on guard with him. I was standing over, and he was just telling me I was asking the interpreter, what's he saying? He's basically saying he wants you dead. And he was all ala this, and I just thought, fuck me, that's brainwashed, religion brainwashed all day long. What the fuck is this about? He wants to kill me. He's 8-year-old, mate. What are you talking about, wants to kill me? And that was the eye-opener for me, because then I realised, that religion's being used against other people, and it's brainwashing people. So, but again, I have to caveat this with, my girls are very religious, and I was I'm a Christian. I was baptised. I just don't believe in it. I just think that you've got to just enjoy life. But if it helps you get through life in a positive way, and you don't use it as a negative, then whatever floats your boat. I don't mind. But she said, anyway, I digress. But she said that was a nail in the coffin for her. She said, because you just said that, we didn't even think about it, and you said it's so direct. It wasn't. It was like it was rehearsed, but it wasn't, because I asked you off the cuff. She said, and that's where you've been masking. So she said, what you've developed over these 40 odd years is masking against society and trying to conform to what society tells you. What did I take away from that? I took away the positives in the sense that I was diagnosed. So that was good for me to be able to validate that the coping mechanisms I put in place are good. And I'd ran through my coping mechanisms and told her that I do cold water therapy. I do a podcast where I talk about this sort of shit. I said I do reflection, I reflect all the time, I meditate, all these sorts of things. I go for long walks, whatever it may be. I really do try and give myself as much good time as possible. I said, but also, I've pushed myself over the 40 odd years to put myself in situations that people don't do anymore. So one thing for me that is clearly apparent, and most autistic people will see this, and this is where I talk about headphones all the time. And I've mentioned this in a previous podcast where I say, I never had headphones when I was a child. I had to listen to noise. I had to, there was stressful situations. You had to go into a classroom, and you see kids now, they put headphones on because it's too noisy. All you're doing is yes, it is too noisy, but if you don't allow them to instill coping mechanisms to manage how they're reacting to noise, then they're never going to put themselves in that negative situation to be able to develop coping mechanisms. If your coping mechanism is put them in a room on their own with headphones on so they can sit in their quiet little space, they're never going to get on with life, because you're never going to put them in a stressful situation. If you'd have done that to me as a youth, I never would have joined the military. With all those fucking helicopters going off and fucking, like I said to me in the last podcast, rounds going down, fucking shooting, all that sort of shit, grenades, fucking, sleeping in shitty situations. If you don't push yourself to being put in those situations, you're going to let your neurodivergency, and don't get me wrong, I will caveat this massively with, there is different levels, obviously, of autism. So, I'm on level 1. So I'm classed as a functioning autistic. So there's lots of characteristics of autism that affect me on a daily basis. And I try to develop coping mechanisms to manage those. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes they do get out, and sometimes I can get burnout. Sometimes I do have to shut myself away. Sometimes I don't want to talk, but the coping mechanism is I just don't put myself in those situations. And I'm an adult, so I'm allowed to make that choice. But at the same time, I've also put myself in loads of different situations where I've had to try and manage those. And one thing that actually comes really resonates to me is I've only been to a concert once in my life, and I love music. I absolutely love music. Music is so underrated in mental health. It's unbelievable because it can put you in a good mood, it can put you in a bad mood, it can put you in a sad mood, it can put you in a fucking ecstatic mood, it can make you dance, it can do whatever, so music is the food of love, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? It's everything. So I love music. But I went to a concert once, and it was probably one of the most horrendous experiences that I've ever experienced because there was loads of people, there was loads of stress, it was beaten down with heat, the noise was horrendous, and it was listening to my favourite band at the time, Ben Howard, and I went to see him live. So, but did I have a good experience from it? No, I didn't. But what I've done is I put myself in that situation to know what that situation will do to me, and I came away with a blinding migraine and shut myself away for 3 or 4 days. We're not allowing our children to develop coping mechanisms. We're shutting them away. We're just saying to them, oh, he's autistic or he's ADHD, just let him do it. No, don't let him fucking do it. Let them understand. Let them put them into situations where they stress themselves out. Because when you stress yourself out, your body naturally builds up a defense against that stress, which is why I don't get so stressed now. If I'd have managed my ADHD autism the way that we do now with our children, I wouldn't be doing this. There's absolutely no way. There's no way in the world. There's loads of people, and I do see people with autism now trying to talk about things on social media because they're trying to press themselves out there. And I think to myself, good on you, kudos, because you're actually actively you're trying to get yourself out there. You're breaking your comfort zone. And I've always done that. And that was one thing. It was a positive thing that my wife said to me. She said, I said to her, how do you feel about the diagnosis? Because it's been validated through the NHS and all this sort of stuff. And I said, how do you feel about it? And she said, well, it helps me to understand your brain a little bit more because I understand why things upset you, why you act the way you are, why you like to be on your own, why you like your private space. I respect what you've gone through a lot more, because to be diagnosed with that and still do the things you've done is a huge achievement. And I was like, yes, I said, but she said, I also look at if you'd have been diagnosed with that in today's generation and the way that we're treating it now, would you be the same? And she said, I don't think you would, because you've put yourself in lots of different situations, loud noises, uncomfortable situations. You join the military, you've been to Afghanistan, you've been to Iraq, you've been to fucking Falklands, you've traveled the world, you've been on different aircraft, all these things you put yourself through, and you're constantly trying to prove yourself. You've educated yourself. You started your whole education program, learning health and safety at 40, completely from fresh, doing a master's degree. She said, you've pressed yourself. She said, but it's sad to see, and she's a childminder who deals with SEND children and all that anyway. And she says, we're not allowed to do that. They all walk around with headphones on. They don't challenge themselves. They don't put themselves in situations where they're stressing themselves out. And we look at it as don't stress themselves out. Again, I'm saying there's levels. You wouldn't want to stress somebody who's a level 3 autistic person because they're non-verbal, and they wouldn't be in that situation anyway. I'm talking about our level 1ers. I'm talking about people that have got autism. You can tell they've got autism because of their mannerisms, because of the way they are. But we're treating them almost like a level 1's the same as a level 3, and we're not. We're functioning. I'm talking. I'm not non-verbal. I've got intelligent aspects to me. I'm a very quick learner. I like structure. I'm very good at identifying processes. I'm very good at pattern recognition. I'm very good at understanding people very quickly, and I know who to navigate towards, and I know who to avoid. It's a very it makes life easy when you actually understand your neurodivergent brain. It makes life quite easy, to be fair. If you sit there and shadow yourself away and make everybody pander down to you, that's when you get issues. So I think it's so important to develop coping mechanisms, and all of my coping mechanisms, they're embedded across everything, to be fair. I've got coping mechanisms for driving. So when I get in a car, I set a car up a specific way. I turn the lights down to a specific dimness. I have the level of music to a specific level. 13 is the level because it's my lucky number. But all of these things, I do this naturally. I get into a car. I've done it for so long. I get into a car, I set it up, I get into the right position, and then go, oh, that's it. Yeah, comfortable. Yeah, turn the lights down. Yeah, that's it. Brilliant. And I do that routinely. And I do it every single time. No matter what car I get in, I will set it up before I even get going. That's a coping mechanism to help me feel comfortable in the car. I also do it in here. I have music to a certain level, or if I'm stressing myself out there, like I was earlier on today, everyone said to me, go and sit in your fucking man cave. You're stressing yourself out. You're stressing all of us out because you're up here shouting really loud. You're fucking you're like a bull in a china shop. You're shouting at the dogs, get the fuck out, because you're overwhelmed and overstimulated. You're now passing that on to all of us. So get a fucking chocolate bar and go out inside in the man cave. That's what I was told earlier. And this is a coping mechanism for me. So I can take myself out of situations that I don't want to be in. That's a coping mechanism. If I'm feeling stressed, I go for a walk. I put music on, the right music for the mood, and I go for a 3K walk. That's a coping mechanism. If I want to leave work early, I'll leave work early. Helps with flexible working hours, but I leave work early because I've had enough. I've reached my peak. But there's times where I'll stay late, and because I'm in the flow, I'm hyperfixated. All of these things, I've got a working from home situation that's all set up perfectly, so I can just sit in. I've got a mirrored version of that at work, so I get continuity. I get the same setup here as I get into work, so it feels exactly the same. It's familiar, same mouse, same keyboard. All of these things I need because I like a soft touch keyboard. I like an ergonomic mouse. I like to feel like I'm in control. I've got a nice mouse mat. All of these things I do as coping mechanisms to make my life more comfortable. Some people might look in and go, fuck me, that guy's batshit crazy. Maybe, but I would actually be fucking real batshit crazy if I didn't do these things. But it's all about, it's like in here, doing this podcast, I will be overstimulated. I've got a huge fucking great big light in front of me there. I've got a sun lamp there, which is a positive for me anyway. I've got a light there. I've got a light behind me. I've got fucking music in the background that I'm picking up. All of these things are massive overstimulants for me. I do it because this allows me to, this is my coping mechanism. My coping mechanism is talking to you, allowing me to understand life. And I think that for me, not enough of us have coping mechanisms in place. We sit there and we don't fucking talk. Men don't talk. They bottle shit up. But they don't, and then they sit there and 9 times out of 10, it'll be like this when it'll be I'll have a fucking beer. I'll have a beer. That'll sort me fucking woes out, won't it? I'll have a rum. I'll have a fucking cigar, whatever it may be. If that's a coping mechanism, then fair play to you, but it's a toxic coping mechanism, not so much as a cigar, but the drinking side of things. But that's often what men do. We'll get drunk and we'll fucking become absolute arseholes, and then we blame the world. It's the world's fault. It's all of your fault. It's our wife's fault. It's our kids' fault. You're holding me back. Because that's what we do, because we don't know how to manage our emotions. Not enough of us have coping mechanisms in place. But what we do, and I see in this an abundance, is we expect the world to pander down to us. The one thing she said to me when we finished our interview, she said, what do you want out of the diagnosis? And I said, the same thing I wanted with the ADHD, nothing. I don't want the label. I don't want to be classed as a protected characteristic. I don't want that classification. I want it to understand my brain. So when I come to you and I say to you, I'm experiencing this, this, and this, and this, and then you tell me you're experiencing this, this, and this because you're autistic, I go, okay. However, that's my brain. How do I research, developing a coping mechanism to not let that stress out? And I didn't do that last week. I did not have a coping mechanism, and I just went fucking absolutely bull in a china shop. Fucking texting my boss, texting my capability supervisor. Fucking, I've had enough. I'm fucking leaving. I'm banging out. I've had enough. I can't see a fucking future here. You're all a bunch of fucking assholes. I can't be doing with this. What do you mean go formal? Fucking formal. It's a couple of words, and I took it as a massive offensive. I took it massively offensively. Massive. Is that even 2 words? I took it offensively. Didn't need to put massively in there, did you, James? I took it offensively. because the whole thing had overwhelmed me. People coming and talking to me. And this is the other thing. I had 4 people come up to me during the day going, James, you want to make this formal? Come see me. You want to make this formal? I'm like, fuck off. I don't care about it. It was a flippant comment. I want the guy to be told one-to-one to fucking careful what he says, because he might say it to the wrong person. But at the same time, I don't want to go formal. I'm not here to fuck people over. That's not my style. I don't want to fuck people over. What I do want to do is acknowledge that's an unprofessional approach to talking to somebody. And also, I could have been in a really bad place. And you don't want somebody. What if there's somebody who's been trying fucking hard to get promoted or something else, or trying hard coming in, or even to the point where I might have got to the point that morning where I didn't want to get into work, and I was feeling fucking overwhelmed, and I'd had enough, and I was stressed out, which I probably was to a degree. And I just about got out of bed, and I put my fucking clothes on, and I went, just fucking make the day happen, mate. Just go in and just make the day happen. You'll feel better at the end of it because you'll feel like you've achieved something. And then I walk in and get that. And you're like, I wish I'd stayed in fucking bed. And then when you go home, if I'd have been in a negative mindset, and I'd gone home and not spoke to anyone during the day, and gone home with the mind that people think I'm sucking dick to get promoted, I'd have gone, oh, fuck, I've had enough. And if I was really, really if I was in a really horrible place, that's a trigger point for somebody to go and commit suicide. That's the type of thing a man would commit suicide for. So come on. So yes, it needs addressing. But at the same time, my coping mechanism for that was, when I came home, was I vented, and then I went to bed. I shut myself out. I'd overwhelmed myself so much fighting and arguing with this scenario that in the end I'm going to sleep. And I had the Friday off, and then I woke up on a Friday, and I said to my wife, I said, have you got today off? And she went, I haven't, but I can do if you want. I said, can you take the day off, please, so we can spend the day together? We can go out and get some Nando's. Just want to walk around, hold your hand. And she was like, oh, okay. And I felt better for it, because I was walking around and I was going, I've got company and I feel like I can talk. And I've got to a good place where I can actually talk to my wife now. And I do talk openly about a lot of things. Sometimes she goes, it's too much. I can't take all that on board because I don't want to know what's in your mind, because I can't fathom what goes on in your brain. And I don't mean that as a negative, that sounds negative, but, when I talk about some of the crazy stuff I talk about, like life and, Scientology and all that sort of stuff, or, the universe, or living in a matrix, or whatever it may be, whatever fucking dodgy fucking website or something. I've been watching some dodgy fucking, I don't even, there's a word on the tip of my tongue and I cannot, conspiracy, that's the word. Any conspiracy theories, I quite like them, to be fair. And I was watching one the other day about, living in the matrix, we live in a simulation. And then as I was watching that, and it was quite a lengthy video on to prove we live in a simulation. And then I saw this funny video afterwards where this guy goes, if I'm living in a simulation, whoever's controlling me as a character, fucking buy some level ups, mate, because I'm having a shit time. Fucking level me up, mate, for God's sake. You know what I mean? But it's true. You're like, if this is a simulation, put some fucking coins in, or do A, up, down, left, right, start, fucking get me some fucking upgrades. Drop a tank in for me, for fuck's sake, like GTA. So it's important. But again, that has all come from an evolution with my wife, in the terms of that's taken years of sadness. 3 suicide attempts, years of sadness, 3 suicide attempts, to the point where even now I still don't fully talk about things, and I still let things build up, even though I'm sat there telling people, don't build up, talk about it, develop coping mechanisms. And sometimes I fail on that. And luckily there are only small things that I fail on, so I might get a bit angry. But if you're in the wrong mindset and you go into work and someone mentions someone says something like that, that's enough to go home and want to not be here anymore. So that was my goal set behind that. But anyway, back to coping mechanisms. I think we don't put enough coping mechanisms in place, and we don't give it 3 months to learned habit. I'll keep saying that all the way through this podcast journey. 3 months is a learned habit. Make sure you do something for 3 months routinely for it to be embedded in you as a coping mechanism. Because if you don't, it falls to the wayside. And it's so easy to say, fucking whatever, I'm not going to do it today. That one day you don't do it turns into a week, turns into 2, turns into you being sad and not understanding why. And then someone says coping mechanisms, you go, I fucking tried that. How long did you try it for, mate? I tried it for a week, didn't work. Try it for 3 months, mate. You've got to be consistent with it. You have to be consistent, and you have to to validate everything, you've got to be consistent. You've got to try it for 3 months. You absolutely have to. Do you know what? I'm going to leave it there because I'm absolutely ball bagged and I've got work tomorrow. But it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. It really has, and I hope you're enjoying the content. Please like, follow. Oh, before I do go, actually, I'm going to show you some of my artwork because I've created a bit of artwork. I've got one. I've revamped my Star Wars one. This is something I'm going to show because I'm selling these two. So these are going to go towards my GoFundMe. So I just want to share with you what I've done this last couple of weeks. Hopefully you can see that. But that's the Star Wars one. It's not very good. If I stand behind it, maybe. Whoa, where are they going to find it? No, it's not. It's not, is it? But there's a Star Wars one there. I've done that. That's pretty fucking cool. I love that. It's a Star Wars piece of artwork. Lots of stuff on there. And then this is the one I did and I finished last night. Basically, I wasn't feeling the best last week. I'll be honest, as you well know, I've just spoke to you about it. I wasn't feeling the best. So headspace wise, I was up till stupid o'clock. So I went into my vintage bottle collection and pulled out a vintage bottle of tequila, smashed it up, and I've made this. And look at this little beauty. Again, it's not going to focus very well, which is really frustrating. But go check out my TikTok or my James Littlejohn Designs page. Go check out James Littlejohn Designs on Facebook, and you'll see that. It's a bit annoying. I'd like to see it, but I can't. I'm trying all sorts. Oh, is that it there? Is that it there? But anyway, it's there. So I've made some resin artwork. Oh god, they're heavy. They're heavy with a bit of resin in them bad boys. There are a couple that are going to be going. Sorry, it's a bit loud. There are a couple that are going to be going onto my my design page, and they'll be contributed towards my GoFundMe. I'm slowly building up my GoFundMe now, which is quite nice. Obviously, as you know, my GoFundMe is for my dream job of a kennel and cattery. So I'm just pumping money into that. So I'm creating stuff to hopefully build up that side of things, and I enjoy doing it as a process. That was something that got me through this week very much. Again, that's my coping mechanism. I come in here, I put on a nice bit of music, and I sit here and I do artwork, and I absolutely love it. Music on, headspace is great. The lighting is all just perfect mood lighting because I've got everything as mood lighting in here. I've just noticed as well that my whiz light's off. That's a bit annoying. But yeah, so well, no, I'm not going to put it on now because I'm just finishing up. But yeah, so it's but like I say, coping mechanisms, all good stuff, and hopefully you found some validated content here today that you can like, comment, and share. Jump on board, follow me, come along for the journey. I really do appreciate everything that you say. Some feedback would be really good, and I look forward to the journey with you. Here we are on season 2. Artwork is coming in abundance. And we are slowly coming into February, which is nice. We are about 37 days away from the early mornings and the late nights where we get the sun back, so we naturally feel a bit better. It's all good stuff. So we've got another month left of January. So we're in, like I say, we're in the 7th month. It's an 8-month month, so we're going to get away through it. But just keep coming along. Like I say, hopefully I'll give you some tips, and obviously any tips I did have a tip actually for you. ADHD. Before I switch off, there's a tip I was given the other day, and I've been using it for a week, and it fucking works. Whenever you feel like, so one of the things I do is, as ADHD, I frivolously spend all the time. I go in and I go, I need this, and I just go straight in. I go to buy, and then I buy it, it comes home, and 9 times out of 10, 2 days later, I don't give a shit about it. And then I get overwhelming financial guilt. I normally put myself in the shit with money because that's what I've inherently done. And then I get to the point where I'm like, what the fuck have I done that for? Somebody said to me, put it in your basket, shop, feel the endorphins, feel like it's gone into the basket, but don't proceed. Switch off. Just switch your phone off and go and do something else. Guarantee you won't go back to that. And if you do go back to that, which I have done, and I've gone back in and I put it in the basket, and then I've gone in the basket and it says, you've got 4 items in this basket, or 2 items in this basket. And I go, 2? Why have I got 2? Because I put it in the basket a week ago and I found it again. Now, if you get to the point you said where you've done it a certain amount of times, for me would be 3 times. If I've done it 3 times or something like that, and you think I do need this, is obviously I've come back round again. So this is a real need. Then there's more chance that you'll buy it for the right reasons. So just try that. If you've got ADHD and you're a bit of a spender like me, try putting it in the basket but not actually going through with it. because you get the adrenaline of shopping and looking at the details. That's what I do. I look at the details. What can it do? And then I go onto YouTube and I find what it can do, and the unboxing of it so I can see it open up. And I've started to do that now. And then I put it in the basket and don't buy it because I don't want it. I want it because I think I want it. But what I've noticed is when I put it in the basket and shut down and do something else, I don't come back to it. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Sometimes it may be good, sometimes it may be shit. I love that saying. Anyway, little tip for you there, just to take away from you. Try and put it in the basket, but don't click fucking sale and see if it changes you. Thanks for listening. Take care, everybody. And I look forward to speaking to you on the next podcast.